Today, we're looking at product variant swatches again. You have all been giving such great feedback, and so I've taken the most common requests and included in this new update of the swatch code. You still have all of the previous functionality to add image swatches, but we've made it simpler to customize the settings with the theme editor. We added the option to add a color hex code swatch, and we've also added a feature to use unique swatch images or colors for different products, even if they have the same variant name. While we're still waiting for the native swatches to finally be available in Shopify, we have to use some workarounds like what I'll be showing later in this video instead. And whether or not you have installed the previous version of our swatch customization, this video will show you step-by-step how to add the swatches to your store without needing to pay for an app or hire a developer. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, so let's just do a quick little demo of this customization. We're in our demo store here, and we're going to start off by quickly going over the existing features. So in case you haven't seen our previous swatch videos, the features that we have here are that we can, well, first of all, we can add swatches here. You can see these little circles. In here, we have a few different options already. So by default, if you don't set any image or color codes, then it will just use the variant image. So in this case, you can see the variant image is black, so it'll take the black image, and red will take the red image, and white will take the white. But if you want to specify an image, so for example, this blue here, we have this blue rose, or this green one, we have this little green image. So you can actually change the image to be whatever you want, and it will show up on the swatch there. You can also set it for different variant options. So we've got this for color, but you can also do it for material, right? So we've got a cotton here, we've got polyester. So you can add multiple swatch categories onto your store. We also have a little bit of styling here. So for example, if your variant is out of stock, it will gray it out and cross it out just to make it visually obvious that it's out of stock. The next thing that we have here is beside our variant option name is the actual currently selected variant. So in this case, green. Once I click the blue one, I'll change to blue, black, etc. So those are the variant names of each one of these options, because normally with the pills or the drop-down menu, you actually see the text there. With swatches, that goes away. So we just bring that up here so you can see which one you've selected. So that is the case also for the material here, right? So it's cotton or polyester. And that is, in a nutshell, our previous swatch video. We also had some options to, say, change the shape or size of these images, but that was always a little bit more difficult because you had to do it in the code. So what we now have is we have added into the theme editor. So you can go into the theme editor and then go to products, default product. And then you can select your variant picker. And so you can see here this new section here. So custom swatch, these are the new settings that we've added in this customization. We have a swatch section that is pre-existing, right? So this is the default settings, but we still can't use this yet until Shopify releases their product categories, metafields. And so we have our own custom settings. And so you can change it from a circle to a square, or if you want to just default back to pills, then you can do that. Just make sure you are using pills. If you have this set on dropdown, then setting it to square or circle is not going to do anything. It needs to be pills in order for your swatches to work. Okay, and next we have this default variant swatch map meta object. This is just pointing to the meta object that contains all of our swatch data. You'll see what that's about a little bit later if you're not sure what this means, but I won't get into it too much right now. And then we have the swatch size. So if you want it to be bigger or smaller, you can just change that up however you like. The next new feature that we have is the ability to change the swatches by product. So right now, with the existing version, if you had a product that had a variant called black, for example, like this one right here, then any product that has black as a variant will be showing the exact same swatch image. But many of you are saying, if you were selling different products or you want that image to be a little bit different, then how would you go about doing that? And so we've added a new feature just for that. And so if you go into your products area, we can see here that in this metafields area, there's a variant swatch map override. So if you leave this blank, it will go to the default, right? So that's currently at default. But if you enter something in here, then it will override the default meta object, which is what we were seeing right here, and use the new meta object instead. And so if we go to the original sweatpants, you can see here that we've actually added a test override meta object. And so for this product, the swatches can look a little bit different. And so we can just quickly look at what that looks like. You can see here, this is what our original t-shirt looks like with the colors black, blue, green, red, white. But if we come to our sweatpants, we've got the same variant names, black, blue, green, right? Blue, green, red, white. But in this case, these images are a little bit different. So black, instead of it being the t-shirts, right? You can see here, we've got a different image and these color swatches. And so now we can dynamically change the different swatches by product if you choose to do that. If you don't, then you can always default to the original. And the last feature that we've added in this version is actually right here. So these color swatches. A lot of you liked the feature of using the hex code in the original version of our swatch code. And so we've brought that back, and you can now set color hex codes for your swatches. And so you don't have to add an image in there. You can just use the hex code instead. And so in this case, it's a red or a white. And so if you like what you see here and you like this customization, then stick around because now we're going to add it to your store. So I've just installed a fresh new version of Dawn. We're using the latest version, which is 14.0.0. And you can see when we visit the site, we now have these pills here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add swatches back into this fresh new version. If you've installed a previous version of our swatches customization, then you can actually just follow along, and anytime I talk about updating a file or some variables, then you can just replace the new code with the old one, because I've just kept everything, I kept the base the same, it's just some of the lines of code have changed. But if you're using one of the older versions from version 11 or 12, then it's not going to translate quite as nicely. So just watch out for that. And you might want to start from scratch for those ones. Now, before we start, just make sure to duplicate your theme. If anything goes wrong, it'll be much easier to just revert back to your previous version instead of trying to figure out what happened. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our meta object. So we can go to settings and then custom data. And we're going to scroll down to the meta object definitions, and we're going to add a definition. We're going to call this the variant swatch map. We'll add a field. It's going to be a single line text with the name title. And then we're going to add a regular expression. So I'm just going to copy and paste this in. And what this is going to represent is that the title has to be alphanumeric with dashes and underscores only. And we want this format because the code's going to be reading it, so it can't take too many special characters or it can't take spaces. So we want to limit the names of our meta objects, and you'll see that a little bit later when we name their meta object. But we want to put that in there just to prevent us from giving it a bad name. Okay, and the next field is going to be a JSON. And so let's add that in. We're going to call this the variant images JSON. And we're just going to copy and paste our schema into here. And once that's in there, we can add and we can save. Now that we've created our meta object definition, we can now create a product meta field. And so we'll hop into there, add definition, and we're going to call this the variant swatch map override. Okay, and then this is going to be type meta object, and we're going to select the meta object definition we just created, and we're going to save that. And then finally, what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple meta object entries going into the content area. We have our meta objects, variant swatch map. We've got no entries, we can add one. And we'll call this variant swatch mapping. And I'm just going to paste my example variant swatch mapping JSON. This is what's going to work for my demo store. For your store, you might have different variant names, right? So in this case, we've got material and color. Yours might be different. Your variant values might be different too, right? So my variant names are variant values are blue, green, black, etc. So just make sure that this works for you. I've also added some different images. So you're going to need to make sure that you've uploaded those images to your files area, which we'll just take a look at in a moment. If you want some hex codes, then you can use the variant hex here. So this is just an example format that you can use. You will have to adapt it to your own store, but these are the 4 variables at play. You've got variant name, variant value, variant swatch, and variant hex. Now, how it works is if you have a variant swatch, then it's going to use it. If you don't have a variant swatch, then you can just leave this blank, and then it will look for the next thing. And the next thing is going to be the variant hex. So if you have a variant hex, you can put it in. If you don't, then you can actually just leave it out. And if you can't find a variant hex, then it will default to the variant image, right? The one that you put into the product page, like these ones right here. Right here. So your black extra small is this image, so it will just default to that. But yeah, that's your variant swatch mapping. So we can go ahead and save that. And now let's take a look at the files. Right. So the files that I had have been uploaded in the past. So for example, we had bluerose.jpg. Right. So this is the file that we've uploaded previously. Just make sure that your JSON also includes the file extension, right? So in this case, it would be bluerose.jpg, and that's what you're going to add to your JSON file. Okay, so now that you've done that, we've prepared our meta objects and our meta fields. We can now edit code. And so, like I mentioned previously, just duplicate your theme first before making any changes to your code, and then if anything goes wrong, it'll just be easier to revert back. So we're going to edit code. And then we're going to look for the main product.liquid file. And in there's going to be a schema section. Right, so right down, a little further, right here, schema. And so what this is actually, if I do customize theme, is if we go to the default product, so these settings here that we can find, so if we go to product information, all these settings here, that's what the schema is for. It defines all the different settings that are found on your product section here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look for the variant picker right there. And this is the settings for the variant picker right there, right? And so we just have style and swatch here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some additional settings here. So we can take a comma and space. And so this right before the variant picker section ends, we can just copy and paste our new section. We'll save that. And if we refresh now, you can see here we have all these new settings that we were looking at in our demo. Now, changing this doesn't actually do anything yet because we haven't edited the rest of the code to use the settings. So let's move on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the product variant picker. And so this is actually the code that controls the variant picker itself. So these guys right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to look for this for loop. So for option in product.options with values. So this right here, we're looking for this, and we're going to add a little bit of code above it and a little bit of code below it. So right before it, we're going to add this code here. And then below it, you're going to see that there's different options. So swatch, button, select. And so under button, what we're going to do is we're going to create a little bit of space here, and we're going to copy and paste our first part. So it's going to be this if statement. And then right after it, we're going to paste the rest. And so this gives us the option to default to the original version of the code, right, by having none. But if we want to add a swatch, then we'll use this new version. And so that's what we're doing here. And then at the very end of the file, we can add this call for the JavaScript, and we can save. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new file. And so this new file is product variant swatch custom. And just as a side note, if you've already added the swatches from our previous version, some of these files are not new for you, they're existing, so you can just replace the code. Okay, so we're just going to copy and paste our code right into here and save. Okay, next we're going to create a new asset. So this new asset is going to be a CSS file. We're going to call this component product variant swatch custom. Bit of a long name, but that's what we've called it. And once it's created, we can copy and paste our CSS in here, and we'll save. And then one last file to create. We're going to also create an asset, but this time it's going to be a JS file. And this one will be called the product variant selection custom. Okay. And we're just going to copy and paste this. And so both of these files that were created are being referenced in the code we just pasted previously, right? So in our product variant picker, right? So that's the JS file that we just created here. That's being referenced down there. And then up here, we are looking for this CSS file that we just created here. So those are the little assets that we're going to be referencing in our code. But that's essentially it. And now if we come back here and update our swatch selection, you can see here we've got circles, we can got squares, and we can update our size. And that's essentially it. We have now added swatches to our store. And so now we could just refresh on our actual store, and we can see here we've got our swatches. Okay, so now that we have this on our store, let's take a quick little look at using the different variant swatch options. So we've got the images, we've got the hex codes, we've got the variant default variant image, and we've also got dynamic selection of swatches. And so to do that, we'll go back to our JSON file. So we'll go to content, our variant swatch map, and we've got our mapping here. So this is our JSON, right? So here we've got blueRose.jpg, and it's showing this blue rose here. But if we decide that we want it to be a hex code instead, right? So we can use this variant hex and specify a hex code. So what is the hex code for blue? So we can just do hex code blue, and it's 000FF. So we can just use that. Make sure there's only one number, £, and we can save. You get an error because we need commas between these different lines in the JSON file. So just make sure there's a comma between all these different lines, but the last one should not have a comma. So let's just save that. And if I refresh, you probably actually won't see any difference, right? And you don't see a difference because the order of operation, so the most important value is going to be the image. And since the image is there, it's going to still show the blue. But if we say delete this, so it no longer finds the image, and save, and then we refresh again, you can see here it changes into the hex code swatch, right? And similarly, if you don't have the swatch, the hex in there, and we just take that out, so you don't have this, you don't have the image swatch and you don't have the hex swatch, then when you save, oh, sorry, that's a same issue with the commas. So we just get rid of that last one before the curly bracket, save, and refresh. You can see here it defaults to the actual variant image. And so those are the three different options. You can pick and choose the one that you like best, just as long as you understand how the hierarchy works. It starts off with the image that you select. If you don't want that, then you can do the hex code. If you don't want that, then it's the variant image. And it's all controlled using this JSON file. And so for each one of the variants that you want to have a swatch for, you just build it out with this structure. Okay, so that's how you control these hex codes. But we also, let's say, have our pants, and so we can go to our original sweatpants. And so right now we see similar swatches. We've got the black hex code color swatch, right, which is the same we see here. We've got the variant image, so in this case it'll be pants versus the shirt, and then we've got this little green image here. We've got the red color swatch, and then we've got our pants again, the variant image. But let's say you want the swatches to look a little bit different. You don't want to use the same color swatch, for example. Maybe the shade of black is a little bit different, or the shade of red is a little bit different, or the image is a little bit different. So you can actually override the default. And to do that, you just need to come back out. We can leave page, and we create a new entry. And so we can call this original sweatpants, for example, anything you want. And this is where we can't actually have any spaces, right? So if I just create a space there and try to save, it's going to throw an error, right? The title doesn't fit the format, so we need to make that a dash, and then we can save, and it will work. But let's create a different set of swatches. So I'm going to just copy and paste our default format. So this is the one that we had previously. We actually modified the other one a little bit, right? So this blue is a little bit different. So we can actually just save this right now, because we can have the blue rose image in one, and we can have the default variant image in the other. And so now we can come out to our products and go to our original sweatpants. And then we'll update our metafield override, and we'll just select the one we want, right? So that's the original sweatpants right there that we just created. We'll save. And then now, if I just refresh here, we get the blue rose instead. But if we come back to our t-shirt and refresh, it stays with the variant image t-shirt. So by doing it this way, you can have a completely different JSON file to control the hex codes however you like, right? And so maybe you have a whole set of products that should follow one JSON and another one that follows another JSON. You can separate them in that way. It gives you full control over how your swatches look by product. And so I know a lot of you were asking for that feature, and now we have it. Okay, so that's it. You now have product variant swatches on your store. You can add photos and images, you can add color hex codes, you can default to the variant image, and you can have a unique set of swatches for each product. So I hope this has been helpful. Drop a like and subscribe if it has. Check out all of our other customizations on our YouTube channel and at theprompted.co. But until then, thanks, and see you in the next one.